Oh, it's going to be a good one today. Yes, Freedom Family. Did you know that there is $1 trillion industry that knows full well that what it's promoting is going to make you gain weight? And you've probably either done what they've suggested or are doing what they've suggested. Do you know what it is? Hi, welcome, Freedom Family. My name's Helen Bennett. I'm a coach working with people who struggle with compulsive overeating. And in today's Freedom Friday, live at lunch, we're going to be talking about the exact thing that you might be doing that could probably be causing you to gain weight, and worse, probably, most likely, could even be causing the urges to overeat and binge. All right, let's dive in. So, the industry in question, the $1 trillion global industry that actually makes money from weight loss, has a 98% failure rate. Look, I've heard different percentages on the failure rate, but even if it was a 90% failure rate, that would mean that 90% of weight loss diets fail. And worse than that, weight loss or diets are a predictor of weight gain. Now, certainly that was my experience. And in fact, my very restrictive dieting probably, almost definitely, led me into my disordered eating behaviors and into a full-blown 20-year battle with an eating disorder. That may not be your experience, but I bet that the conversation we're going to have today is going to blow your mind. And at the very least, you're going to walk away with a resistance to dieting again. But then the question comes in, well, Helen, what if I'm somebody in a body that has been dieting, yo-yo dieting for years and just kept gaining more and more weight every time? And now I'm actually carrying a lot more weight than my body could possibly need. And maybe it's even a health factor now where it's causing discomfort or injury and disease, and you're very concerned about how to lose weight. Now, I don't have all the answers for you on this one, but I can tell you exactly where to start. So we're going to chat a bit about this today. I'm going to try and keep these lives to about 15, 20 minutes as best I can, because I want these just to be bite-sized pieces of content that you can pull up, especially use these live recordings when you come into them later in the week for when you're struggling with an urge to either diet or restrict your calorie intake, or maybe you've got a binge urge as well, the urge to eat. It's not got anything to do with hunger, and you just wanting to keep going. And if you can wait 15 minutes, oftentimes the energy of that urge will come down. So that's why these videos are going to be 15, 20 minutes long, to give you something to remind you what needs to be done, reinforce the work we're doing together, and at the very least, keep you distracted from the urge while we give your body a chance to rewire that automated response. So in today's live, we're going to be chatting about dieting and how to lose weight if you really need to lose weight, if dieting is not an option, if dieting is actually going to cause you to gain weight. Before we do that, I'm going to do something today which I haven't tried before, so let's give it a go. I'm going to share with you a little clip from a fabulous podcast. The podcast is with Dr. Evelyn, Tribole, and Dan. So, as I say, the link to the whole interview is in the description. And if you're on my newsletter, every Friday I'll be sending you out a link to a really good piece of content, an interview, a podcast, a book, some kind of mental nourishment that you can dive into and chew on over the weekend, because I know for many, weekends are really challenging. And the other thing that I give out on a Friday is a little action step. Because as much as all this information is wonderful and we get incredible ahas out of them, it's actually in the action that the magic really happens. So I'm coming up with a little action step that'll take just 15 minutes of your time. Again, great thing to use if you're struggling with an urge to overeat or binge. And you can just pull up the email and dive into the content or get the action step done so that you can just consistently be making progress towards a more free, relaxed relationship with food. All right. So I just love Dr. Evelyn, and I love Dan Harris as well. But that I thought was so powerful, wasn't it? You know, if we know that diets are predictive of weight gain, it would kind of be like prescribing a medication for something, knowing that it was going to cause more of the problem. And then we're left in a bit of a pickle, aren't we? It's just really, well, now what do we do? So as I say, I don't have all the answers, but if you read her book, and from my experience as well, you only have a chance if you're in a body that is put on excess weight over the years due to overeating, probably as a result of dieting, although there are a number of other reasons people start to overeat and to feel compulsive around food. But dieting is a big one of them. Restrictive thinking even and restrictive eating propel a huge number of urges. And I've seen this in my own experience and with the people that I work with. In fact, I would go so far as to say, with somebody who's already struggling with compulsive eating, going on a restrictive diet actually is predictive of relapse, aka they could be doing extremely well. They think, oh, I'll just pull out a quick 8-week shred, and the next thing they know, they're phoning me because the compulsions are back. So once somebody's had that experience a few times, and trust me, we've all been there, and because the desire to lose that weight and get that high and get all the compliments, it's so compelling that, I've been there. And then those urges kind of wake up again as our body starts getting scared and thinks, oh my gosh, she's starving me again. And then it goes, oh, we need to eat. And then all you can think about is food. Speaking of which, in the interview, Dr. Evelyn mentions a study called the Minnesota Semi-Starvation Experiment. Do yourself a favor and Google it. I will make a video about it down the line. But that will again just reinforce what happens to a completely normal, healthy human being, both mentally, physically, and emotionally, when we are deprived of the caloric intake and the nutrients that we need. Now, it's not to say that weight loss doesn't work. It's not to say that it's impossible once we start this cycle. However, in my experience, anecdotally for myself and with others, it does take a lot longer than we would like. And the focus needs to be, one, on getting back the connection with your body. Now, that's the work I teach people. And if you want to really dive deep into the weeds in this, in the link in the description, you'll find a link to a masterclass. It is free until the end of May. And even then, it will be a minimal charge where I really go deep into the entire framework that I use with the clients I work with. And because there are 4 components to this, restrictive dieting is one of them, and ending that is one of them. But there are another 3 that are really important that you start working on in order to turn this ship around. And with that masterclass comes a training that you can check out called Tummy Check-ins, where I really guide you through the beginnings of what Dr. Evelyn would call interoceptive awareness, that ability to rehear and connect with our hunger and fullness signals again. So that's a good place to start. And that will probably move 80% of the needle if you consistently practice it. Because again, it's in the action that all the magic happens. So the first place to start, if you are in a body that has got years of excess weight on board, and for your health and for your well-being, you'd like to shed that weight, but you're in this horrible pickle now because diets don't work. In fact, you're more likely to gain additional weight. Now what? Well, the first thing we do is take at least 3 to 6 months to do the work around letting go of this diet mentality, really facing and accepting the body you're in, even if your body is very over its ideal weight. I mean, the weight that it needs for survival, comfortable survival. And as a woman, this is quite an easy mark to get, because if we've lost our menstrual cycle, then we've gone below that line. But anything above that, it's kind of comfortable into excess, right? And we all have an intuitive feeling about where we are in terms of our bodies, what I'd call the Goldilocks zone. It's really only you will know if you're there. And it's hard to get our minds out of the way on this, because if I've got a bit of a muffin top, it's easy to think, oh, I'm so fat. But actually, is my body 100% comfortable and fit and strong and healthy today? Yes. In fact, muffin tops and bellies are normal. Please, can we normalize this? But that can take some work to get your head around letting go of that deep desire to go on a diet, particularly when we live in a world that is diet and thin obsessed, where so much of our self-worth is conflated with our body image, particularly as women. So, but this really affects everybody now. So the first place to start is we've got to let go of that diet mentality and really embrace honoring and listening to our hunger again. Now, you might be thinking, well, Helen, if I listen to my hunger, I'm just going to eat and never stop. To be honest, At the beginning, a little bit, you might feel like a bit of a kid in a candy shop when you're actually giving yourself permission to eat when you're hungry. But when done correctly and with repeated awareness and slowing everything down, you start to become so good at hearing those little whispers from your body. And because you're not in a state of starvation anymore, all of that obsession and the urges just start dialing down. It does take a while, and you probably make a few mistakes where you go a bit far and you unleash a bit of a binge. And that's okay. That's why it'd be helpful to have coaches working alongside you to keep you doing the work, or a coach. And as I keep saying, if you'd like to work with me, the link to book a call with me so we can chat and find out if we're a good coaching team is in the description. But having somebody there to hold you through that difficult period where you're going to make mistakes and you can't quite tell what your hunger is doing, and you went beyond the fullness line, and to keep you back to doing the repeated work, the better. And what you discover as you do that work is your body's giving you these unbelievably awesome signals that you can just, once you hear them, you just feel so trusting of them. So when I work with somebody, we always find when we start doing this work of connecting with their bodies, we call it a tummy check-in, right? It's like, oh, wow, my body didn't want 3 pizzas. It's really balanced, full meal. And it surprises people no end that when they actually listen, their body's unbelievably good. What a surprise at knowing what it is that just hit the spot and keep you nice and comfortable. Listening to that can be really hard, particularly when you carry these diet culture rules about when you should eat, how much you should eat, which macros you should eat and when. And we've got to throw them all out the window and actually try and listen. And that's fine when you're having a day when actually it's hard, you're not that hungry, all you feel like is a light salad or a bit of fish and, veggies, the things we think of as good. It's really challenging when your body's going, I need pasta, or I really need whatever the latest thing that's being demonized, sugar, heaven forbid. That's when it's harder. But in my experience, and then with all the clients I work with, when we actually listen to that little inner whisper that's saying, I really want this thing, and I know you don't want me to eat that, but that's what I really need. When we're actually able to override the mind that says, diet, diet, you're not allowed, bad, 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 and we listen to our tummies, it always leads us in the right direction. That takes a lot of work and a lot of practice. That's why I keep harping on about all the action that is required to change our relationship with food. So letting go of the diet mindset, committing to not diet and rather start honoring your body's hunger and fullness again. Committing to the practice of hearing it, taking a moment in your day to have a listen and to do your best to honor it, and then to do your best to stop when you get that feeling of, I'm done. That takes a lot of work. If people put as much work into listening to their body as they did into their diets, you'd pick it up like this. But, diets are fun and you get quick results and it's instant gratification. You get all this praise until you don't. That's what I loved about that clip, is how she points out that everybody's showing off their body, their 6-pack bodies before the summer, that they've just mass dieted in the last 3 months to get there. But not many people are willing to show you the body when it's gained the weight back and then a bit more. You don't really see that on social media. In fact, I've never seen it. But I also know that for every 100 people that I know have been on a diet, including myself, I actually don't know anybody that I can think of offhand who has kept the weight off from what their initial starting point was. And maybe you can think of 1 or 2 people. I legitimately can't think of a single person offhand who's been on a very restrictive diet, lost a lot of weight quite quickly, and not had to come back on within the next 2 to 3 years. And certainly by the 5-year mark, that weight's back on, if not more. So step number 1 is we've got to release that mindset, because it's going to get us nowhere. I mean, it just won't. Reconnect with your body. I would spend 3 to 6 months focusing entirely on just accepting where your body's at, even if it's bigger than you would like it to be, even if it's holding a lot of excess weight from years of compulsive eating and dieting. And then what's the next step? I can feel my alarm's about to go off. Yep. So I've got to jump off this call or this live in a little while. I'm going to be on my other channel, which is Bulimia Freedom. For anybody struggling with bulimia or binge eating disorder specifically, you can join me there. Throw me your questions on Friday. I do a little bit of a freestyle. We chat about all things to do with really disordered eating and how to heal that. But here we're just talking about general compulsive eating, all of the things that I talk about here apply there as well. So if you're struggling with bulimia specifically, the link in the description, you'll find the link to the channel. I'll be there in 10 minutes doing a Q&A. But let's just wrap up this conversation. So step number one, if you're wanting to lose weight, you're in a body that's been carrying years of excess. And the step is, you've got to get rid of this idea that you can diet. And that's really hard to do. It's easy to say and so hard to do. And if you commit to that and just commit to really getting that clarity of reconnection with your hunger and fullness, and do all the work to really watch it and be mindful and notice it and set alarms and do all the things that I suggest, do that for 6 months. Then, maybe then, you can begin to look at other ways to help nudge the needle, move the needle, nudge the noodle. What I would suggest, because this is what I see work when people are really dedicated, and it's slow, guys. I mean, I cannot emphasize enough that if your body has weight to lose, it has to be so convinced that you are looking after it and nourishing it and feeding it. And even then, it will only lose weight slowly, because let's be honest, the weight didn't come on overnight. Everybody says it does. You know, I've heard, if I just look at that pizza, I'll gain weight. Good luck with that, because I've never seen somebody be able to look at a pizza and gain weight. In truth, when we look at it, the weight took years to come on. Sometimes it's taken 3, 4, 5 years. Or maybe it's been on for 3 or 4 decades it's been on. So usually what happens when somebody works with me, if they're in a body that's had a lot of excess, they will stabilize. They won't be getting bigger. It stabilizes. But it can take a long time for that flywheel to start moving in a different direction, if it does. And the only way it works for those for whom it will work is with consistent effort, a real love and respect for the body we're in, a focus on health. And that isn't just physical health. It's the focus on mental health. Are we doing daily training to keep this in a really strong space? And it's the focus on our emotional health. Do we know how to release emotions that we used to reach for food to numb, escape, and express? So there's a lot to it. But when people work consistently over time and they start to really fall in love with the incredible body that they were born with, the only one that they have. And I mean in love in that you just love it so much you want to care for it. When that starts to turn around, that's when your body will allow a bit of weight loss to happen slowly, consistently over time, the same way it came on. And as I say, unfortunately, it doesn't happen for everyone for whatever reason. I'd imagine if I was to guess that the body is just so fearful of weight loss from the sort of trauma that it's been through with all the restrictive practices that it's been through, that it's very resistant. So when you go into this journey, there's going to be a moment of maybe acceptance and maybe a little bit of, this could be a long mountain to climb. But I truly believe, and I've seen this too, is when you are diligent and consistent and focused on finding daily practices that honor your health. And there's 7 things that can help you improve your health. You know, we think of just diet, but actually it's, do you have a good breathing practice? Are you getting fresh air, sunlight, social connection? That's a huge one. I spoke about this the other day. Water, are we drinking good quality water? And what else are you drinking? I mean, alcohol is like the first thing you can give up that you absolutely do not need on any level. And are you focusing on that? You know, and if you're struggling with that, do you have a coach? If you're committed to helping your body create the healthy space in which weight loss can happen, then that's a no-brainer place to start, right? And what are the other ones? Physical activity, of course. Just do it anyway. It makes you so healthy. The physical activity, we can call it exercise, but it doesn't really matter. Just the movement that you enjoy is so predictive of health. It's unbelievable. And one of my favorite doctors in the world who has a podcast, Dr. Peter Tier, keeps saying that if he could recommend just one thing to every client that would improve their health markers, it would be physical activity. And most specifically, for those of us getting older, strength training. And not everybody wants to do that. That's fine. But then find a practice. Get a personal trainer if you hate strength training. But even something like yoga, it's body weight, but the strength you build just through something as simple as that. It doesn't have to be lifting weights and doing deadlifts, but it can be, and it would be so powerful. Now, those things, if you do those consistently and you find practices that you love, drinking good water, getting lots of sleep, sunshine, fresh air, and social connection, making sure you're prioritizing some physical activity and weight training, ideally daily, but at least 5 times a week. Are you focused on that, or are you obsessing over the one macronutrient that you've been blaming for weight gain for all these years? Obsess on the other things, and that will move the needle in the direction of health. And obsessively work on strengthening this every day. What are the thoughts that are tripping you up? What are the mindsets that are holding you back? That dieting mindset, the desire for thin is a big one. And I mean, to be honest, for me, strengthening that desire that I have that just niggles in the back of my mind, or rather letting go of the desire that I have that niggles at the back of my mind, this belief that I have that if I could just be thinner, everything would get better. That's what I'm still working on, because it nags at me sometimes, that nagging desire to just do that last diet, because maybe I could get that same high that I got on the first one. I say this a lot with my clients, and I'll say it a lot in these lives. The addiction in most cases is not to the food. It's the addiction to this narrative and this belief that we have that if we could just be thinner and in a different body, then we'd be happier. Our work when we do this work is to try and be happy now. And I also say this a lot. You are enough just as you are. Find a way to truly appreciate yourself, at the very least respect your body today. Find ways to be happy. Maybe include your gratitude practice as part of your daily routine for moving towards health. Everybody will need a different balance of things. They'll be focusing on a different thing at any given time. But once you start to find your minimum effective dose and you just do that repeatedly, as long as you're hitting it 70% of the time, you'll just be moving the needle in a beautiful new direction. After years of abuse and shame and self-loathing, it's time for something new. So don't wait until you're eating perfectly and you've got the perfect body before you actually give yourself joy and happiness and contentment. Find it now, because this could be a long journey. And most people don't want to tell you that. That's one thing that industry doesn't want you to know, that weight loss done the right way, health done the right way, it's not an overnight thing. It takes a while to find the things that will move the needle, and then to have them show up consistently in your life. They have to be achievable for you to actually do it. So while you're on that journey, if you're at the bottom of the mountain looking up at the top, it's one step at a time. And if it's going to take you a while, you may as well enjoy the journey. I'm going to leave it there because I can go on and on. So Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, I will be here live. I'd love for you guys to join me and to jump into the chat and shoot me your questions, or just vocalize some support for all of us freedom fighters out there trying to do the good thing in a world that's telling us relentlessly that we need to be on some kind of restrictive diet. It's really hard. It's really hard. And then what else do you need to know? Those of you struggling with bulimia specifically, I'll see you in a second in the Bulimia Freedom channel. Otherwise, it's Freedom Friday. Let me know if you'd like to sign up for my newsletter. I'll make sure that you're on the list so that you can get the email every Friday with all the links and the challenge. And have we got everything? That's it. Have a wonderful weekend, everybody, and I'll see you on Monday.